Young Turks has a new deals page, revision3.com/TYT deals. John Boehner went and spoke at the Economic Club of New York, and that is largely a Wall Street crowd. And everybody was curious as to what he was going to say about the debt ceiling. And of course, the Wall Street crowd wants them to raise the debt ceiling because they don't want any problems with credit, and they think that it'll mess up their financial interest and the different bets that they've got down and the different investments that they've got down. So they got no interest in that. Now, at the same time, John Boehner has to be worried about the Tea Party because they're a very real force within the Republican Party, and they want him to cut the debt no matter what, and they want to use the debt ceiling as leverage to cut the debt, right, and to cut spending. So what's John Boehner going to do? Well, first of all, he's going to try to have it both ways. So he told them, oh, yeah, we'll raise the debt ceiling. So he said it. Okay, then the Wall Street guys are like, okay, we get what we paid for. Fantastic. Then later he said, by the way, we will need to cut trillions in spending before we raise the debt ceiling. So then he says to the Tea Party people, in effect, okay, I'm on your side. Now, they can't both win, right? Unless, of course, the Democrats totally capitulate, and give him a couple of $1 trillion in cuts, which would be draconian, right? So which way is he really going to go? And by the way, if you want $2 trillion in cuts, Harry Reid actually today, in a surprising move, came out very aggressive and definitely did the right move. He said, look, you want to talk about cutting spending? Great, let's do it. Let's start with oil subsidies. Oh, music to my ears. That's awesome, right? So he said, look, we got at least $21 billion in subsidies going to the top 5 oil companies, which are, as we've shown you over and over, the most profitable companies in the world. So obviously, if you're going to cut spending, you would cut it there, right? And of course, there are problems because, oh, no way, the oil companies, no. We would never cut from them. They should get all those government subsidies. They say, oh, it'll affect prices if you, wind up taking away their subsidies. Nonsense. Totally made up. This is, after their profits, how much do they get taxed? And the Republicans are saying, let's give them extra tax loopholes and breaks. So the fact that the Democrats are insisting on that is definitely a good sign to start with. Now, of course, there's another way to do this. You could increase taxes. And in fact, 81% of the American people say we should increase taxes on millionaires. And over 60%, about 70%, say that we should increase taxes on people making over $250,000. So that's what the American people want. Are the Republicans going to give it to them? Of course not. Because the Tea Party doesn't want taxes, and the Wall Street people definitely don't want their taxes raised. So that's the one thing that John Boehner will definitely insist on. In fact, after his speech, he goes on the Today Show, and that's exactly what he does. Let's watch clip number 10.
I went to Washington 20 years ago because I thought government was too big, spent too much, and was not being held accountable. I don't feel any differently today. And this impending debt load on our kids has to be dealt with, and it will be dealt with.
Why not use an increase in revenues, tax hikes, to help with that debt problem? What is the evidence that you can present that the tax cuts of the Bush era have actually accomplished their goals?
Some are suggesting is that we take this money from people who would invest in our economy and create jobs, and we give it to the government. The fact is, you can't tax the very people that we expect to invest in our economy and create jobs. Washington doesn't have a revenue problem. Washington has a spending problem.
But when you talk about creating jobs, when the Bush era tax cuts were passed in 2001, unemployment in this country was 4.5%. Today it's at 9%, just down from 10%. So why are the Bush era tax cuts creating jobs?
They created about 8 million jobs over the first 10 years that they were in existence. We've lost about 5 million of those jobs during this recession. But you can't raise taxes. We can take all of the money from the wealthy, and guess what? We'd hardly make a dent in the annual deficit and do nothing about the $14.3 trillion worth of debt.
So as you sit here today, raising taxes, that's a non-starter.
It is off the table.
Off the table.
Everything else is on the table.
Look at him sitting there protecting the wealthy. No. If you tax the wealthy, it would be wrong. No, because they're the job creators. Except, did they create jobs? Well, as Matt Lauer just showed you, they didn't. Unemployment's at 9%. It's doubled since the Bush tax cuts got installed. You know, during the Clinton era, when we had higher taxes, 22 million jobs created. Now let's talk about what a liar John Boehner is. He just said, since the Bush tax cuts got installed, the next 10 years we created 8 million jobs. First of all, the tax cuts were in 2001 and 2003. For the second round, it hasn't even been 10 years. For the first round, it just got to be 10 years, 2 of which were under Obama, only 8 under Bush. Second of all, did you see his fuzzy math? 8 million got created and then 5 million got wiped out. Well, that would leave you with 3 million, right? Over 10 years. That's a disastrous record. And by the way, it also is not true. The reality is, during the 8 years of George W. Bush, 1 million jobs were created, and then as soon as he left office, because of the recession, we lost another 5 million. A recession that John Boehner and George W. Bush absolutely, positively created with their deregulation and with their absurd tax cuts. So, what do we have? You actually lost 4 million jobs because of the Bush tax cuts. You lost jobs. That's a terrible record. So when he tells you job creators, it's a lie. All he wants to do is protect the rich. It's so obvious from what he says and from the facts. And so there is another way to do this, by the way. You know, they're talking about now he wants a $2 trillion ransom for raising the debt ceiling. Everybody's talking about cutting about $4 trillion overall when all is said and done. Are you ready for this? Do you know that if we just went back to the Clinton tax rates, when we created 22 million jobs in 8 years. So you want to talk about creating jobs, that creates jobs. You know what happened? We would have $4 trillion. Problem solved. End of this. All you got to do is go back to the Clinton tax rates. And they're not exorbitant. It's about 4% higher for the top tax bracket. For money over $250,000. Whoop-de-doo. For the first $250,000, it's the same as before anyway. For money above that, for every dollar above that, it's about 4% more. And look, and by the way, the Clinton era tax rates applies to all of us. So it's not just that it would raise taxes on the rich, it would also slightly raise taxes on the rest of us. But listen, I actually believe we do have to balance the budget. And that's how you do it. And you know, here's another piece of evidence that's how you do it. Under Clinton, we balanced the budget and we had surpluses. And the economy was booming. We know how to do this right, but the Republicans don't want to do it right. All they want to do is give more and more tax breaks to the rich because that's who funds their campaigns. Now, to get back to the issue of Tea Party or Wall Street, which way is John Boehner going to go? Are you kidding me? Are you ready for this astounding fact? In the 2010 cycle, you know how much the financial industry gave to the Republicans in Congress right now? $58,797,874. Over $58 million. Now, who do you think their boss is? Of course it's the big banks. The ones who gave them $58 million. So, no, they're going to pay lip service to the Tea Party. They're going to huff and puff, and they're going to bluff the Democrats and say, oh, we won't raise that debt ceiling unless you give us more spending cuts, so they can get the best of both worlds. Well, if the Democrats are stupid, they'll go along with it. If they're not, they'll say, oh yeah, I'll call your bluff. Go ahead, screw over Wall Street. Let me see how that works out for you. Top of the morning to you. I got a great deal for you. In fact, I got many of them. You go to revision3.com/TYT deals. You'll get discounts. Sometimes you'll get to try things for free. Why wouldn't you try that? Top of the morning to you, lad.